This is F.D.Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening. Hello, this is F.D. Recovery. My name is Frank, your host, and today I got a very special guest co-host. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Shelly, and I'm an alcoholic.
All right, and I am an alcoholic addict as well. So, for those of you that are following, this is the weekly intention. So basically what we do is we break down spiritual principles and we choose one each week. And last week was acceptance, so we'll do a recap on this, but this week will be gratitude. Gratitude. All right, but before we start diving into that, we will recap on acceptance. So the struggles and resistance, that was what I really faced in that one, because acceptance is it's it's better worked on a fortune cookie. I feel like there's I feel like it's easier to read it and it's all good in theory, but then when you have all these feelings and anger and emotions, sadness, happiness, all that crap that ebbs and flows of life, I think it's a lot more resistance than I realize. I My resistance to it is as simple as what other people think. As soon as I think they're wrong, I'm like, fuck you. And I realize that even if they're dumb and they say stupid shit, doesn't give me the right to correct them. And that's one thing that was a huge resistance. It's just like, okay, so if I'm going to work acceptance, I have to accept where people are at, right? And whether I think they're wrong, indifferent, correct or incorrect, whatever the game, the way it plays out at that moment, if I'm constantly trying to change their mind or throw my opinion in just to kind of make sure they know I'm right, it's kind of, I'm definitely out of alignment of acceptance. And I found that the struggle and the resistance to it was much more than just be like, oh yeah, I'm in acceptance. Like I was floating around on it just didn't work for me like that. And as much as I would love to come in here and sit and make this recording all about how I was just sliding on this pink cloud, that's just not the reality. There was just a lot of resistance for me. So, you care to share any of your experience with acceptance this week?
For me, acceptance is admitting when I don't have control over a situation. I want to control everything when it's not my way, and that's difficult for me on a daily basis. So, learning to let go and let things be as they are without my 2 cents, letting go of that is really hard. And that's what acceptance looks like for me, is letting go of control and being okay with the situation for the most part. I mean, keeping in mind my boundaries and where I'm at, and if what's happening is okay with me, and recognizing that if it isn't, what can I do to change the moment?
Okay. Well, I found out the the unwillingness towards acceptance is what I really the thing that I really highlighted for me today, because I thought I was gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna kill it, and I'm gonna be on my weekly intention, and I'm gonna talk about all the graceful stuff I encountered, but the big highlight was resistance and unwillingness. But I mean, I can't come on here and not be honest, and because it's really hard, this whole acceptance, and that whole manipulation, bargaining, and trying to move things around, and that's where that acceptance prayer comes in, on me, focus on me and my attitudes, and that's kind of that acceptance prayers definitely was I realized how much I wasn't in acceptance. If anything, it wasn't, because like I said, I thought I was going to come on here and go, oh yeah, I was accepting everything. I was accepting him, them, their, her, it, all of it. No, that's not even close to the case. What I found was my unwillingness, and if you've been around the rooms a little bit, you know the willingness is a huge part of this, and my unwillingness for acceptance was pretty staggering at moments, right? I could always tell if I'm out of alignment with acceptance because of my attitude. When I start getting quick to anger and short, and if anybody knows it in this room, it's definitely my wife, because she gets the brunt end of it. Although I have been working on myself, there are times where the people closest to me get the brunt of that, and for that and her strength and her acceptance.
You've been a lot better.
Oh yeah, that's one thing that well, we've both been a lot better.
A big piece of that is communication, knowing where you're at, knowing where I am at, and what's happening to create that anger and frustration that you just want to manipulate and
Mhm.
turn around for your benefit.
Oh, but I'm so good at it.
Yeah, you think.
So, the thing that I try to tie into with these with all this is, especially the weekly intention, is the higher power. And just the pure acceptance of that higher power is tough for me, because I have it written out right here, the acceptance of a higher power, right? And that's the step one, two, and three just kind of getting combined. And the higher powers and all of that, even admitting defeat and that powerlessness, because it opens the void, right? If the lack of dilemma is power, and then second step implies insanity, right? And can restore us to sanity, which implies we are insane. So that means the lack of powerness, and this is the way my sponsor broke it down for me, is step three, is allowing that and making that decision to let a higher power come in and control my life, and that means me not control my life. So that acceptance of the higher power was a hard one, because there was times this week where I was just like, damn, where's God in all this? Like, where's my higher power? What message is he trying to send? And it's not all butterflies, roses, and blowjobs. That's not the point. Recovery's about
The
just dealing
hard
with,
truths.
yeah, life on life terms, right? And how did it work for you? Did you notice any higher power connection and acceptance this week?
Nothing that it comes to mind at face value, but one thing I did notice is, I'm at work quite a bit Monday through Friday, except for Thursdays when I'm home with the little. But things are changing there right now, and people that don't have as much seniority as I do have been given this power and this control. And at first, it made me mad because I made it all about me and how come it's not me in that situation, why I wasn't given that opportunity. And I took a step back and I realized that this isn't about me. This is about the greater good for the company that I work for. And the decision was made because that's what needed to happen. It was the best move, the best outcome. And the old me would have thrown a fit. I would have been mad. I would have been pissy with all my coworkers and made the whole situation about me. Whereas now, today, I can recognize that it's it's not about me anymore. I can remove myself from this situation and be okay with it and see the good and the reasoning behind it and just let it be that. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. I don't need to turn it into a whole issue that I was creating and building up in my head. So in a sense, yeah, that would guess that would be my higher power working to help
Mm.
me see a little bit straighter.
But don't you know it's all about me? That's what that
Shit,
reminds
I
me
got it
of.
all wrong.
Well,
To take
yeah,
back my whole statement.
well, I could relate to that because, the initial knee-jerk reaction is just to like, why, what the fuck? I'm in line, and even if, and it doesn't even have to make sense, like, given the reality at hand, especially in your situation, but I could relate to it in so many of my situations where I'm like, I don't even have the time, or I don't even have, not saying the skills, but the skills are always there. It just doesn't fit my life. But even though it doesn't fit, I'm still gonna get pissed. I'm still gonna get mad because, and that's how this works, right? This why it works and why we do this, because it's that's something as so trivial as something that doesn't we're not even really wanting in a sense, maybe in the long term, maybe in the end game, but it doesn't really fit with what we got in our life. And still, my ego, my pride will still always try to put me in a position to where, like, oh yeah, it's all about fucking me. And that's really what it is, right? Not just being appreciative of and eventually you get there, but not being appreciative in the beginning and accepting of it, and along comes with all that, just being generally happy for this person. But it's all about me, because that's as soon as a situation arises, and something's divvied out, or something's changed, or back when the dope man came around and I felt like I got one less hit than the other person, or give me that swig, motherfucker. I know you've been nursing that bottle too. Whatever the case is for some reason my ego and pride just makes me want to feel like I'm robbed. And bringing it back to that higher power, and really connecting that acceptance, and getting to the root of it, is like, that's, I mean, personally, that's the end game. And this whole week has been really hard. I didn't mention anything to you, but um I had to be in acceptance in the reality that there's going to be overdoses, right? I was going into I was going in to the rehab, and this young guy, he's no longer with us, and it sucks because, man, he's such a good guy, and he's so and a lot of people know him that I know, and it just really affected people close to me in my support group, and just seeing those guys in the transitional really mourn this dude. And he wasn't just like a dirt bag, and now we're just trying to run lip service and just say, oh, he's a great guy now that he's dead. No, he was a really good dude. I mean, he was funny, he laughed a lot, and he was just one of us. He was,
You got to know him.
yeah. And be going in there 3 months, 2 or 3 months, while in that little time that he was in there, it just sucks, man. Because he showed promise, and this addiction's, that was a harsh reality, because like going back to that, it's not all sunshine. Like the acceptance of the reality of what we're really facing here, it's scary, right? And you know shout out to the family. I don't want to throw his name out there because I don't feel like that's the right thing to do, but my love goes out to him and his family, and all the people that were affected by that. So, and then navigating and accepting all the negative emotions, and understanding that things don't work out how we think they're going to work out, or how they're planned, right? And that's one thing, is going back to that whole, how did my higher power, or going forward and saying, how did my higher power use it in my recovery, and how did it connect to it? Because those are two different things. How am I connecting it to my higher power, and how did my higher power put it in my life, right? Am I seeing the messages? Am I seeing the path, the information transfer that's trying to be downloaded to me, and my soul, my spirit, and understanding, like, the situation with the guy, right? It's fucking heartbreaking. you know, seeing and for me, have a different outlook. It's just not a number, it's just not a statistic. It's somebody that I was going in there experiencing life with, and having a really good time with these guys. I really enjoy my Friday nights going in there with them, and just navigating those emotions and understanding that life shows up on life term, and just
It's
trying
an
to
unfortunate reminder.
you know, that's just for take a brief moment, and understand that this life that we have is so fragile. And I don't want to go down too much down the rabbit hole on that, and how I'm going to use it, acceptance in my daily life, of kind of recapping what we just kind of did. It'd be less resistance, be less unwilling, right? And connect it to my higher power and see what those messages are all about, because that's where all the gems are. Anything you want to put on acceptance before we move on to gratitude?
No.
Okay. Well, all right. The moment we've all been waiting for. Gratitude. And one thing that popped in my head immediately is adapting an attitude of gratitude. And what the fuck does that mean? It sounded super fancy when I wrote it down, but when you really look, because for me, adapting, that's all I ever did. I was a chameleon. If the wall was white, I would make sure my whole body was white, type deal, And I
A
know that,
survival mode.
yeah, because I mean that's all I knew. I didn't know how to be. I didn't know who Frank was. I thought I knew who you were. I thought I knew that who that person was. I had everybody pegged out, but the person I never really cared to investigate was myself, right? And
Learning
that,
to adapt in a healthy way.
you know. So before we start, jamming in that, I mean, what you got over there? I saw you pull something out.
The definition of gratitude,
Yeah.
according to Google's finest, gratitude is a state of being thankful and appreciative, a positive emotion that can lead to increased happiness, stronger relationships, and improved well being. Talks about feeling of thankfulness. Psychologists view gratitude as a positive emotional response to receiving a benefit or kindness from someone. And beyond interpersonal, while often associated with receiving something from others, gratitude can also encompass appreciation for life experiences, personal attributes, and the good things in one's life. And it goes on into more this, that, and the other thing. But
So you heard it, folks. She is now my designated reader for the podcast from here on out. So anytime we need anything read, she's our girl.
I'll have to get paid more for
the
this.
the whole time I just made it about. I'm like, damn, she's such a good reader. I fucking suck.
I made it about you. That
Yeah.
checks out. Well, I
Well,
don't know, but gratitude in my life today is such more meaningful than it ever has been. I grew up in a situation where we didn't have a lot. We moved around a lot. It was just my mom and I. And when I got older, when I was, say, my late teens, early 20s, before I had my son, even right after I had my son, I felt everybody owed me something, no matter who you were, because of the lack of things that I had materialistically or emotionally.
mm,
I felt that people owed me that when they don't. They don't owe me shit. And it took me falling on my ass, falling on my face, losing completely everything I quote unquote worked for, to really realize that that's the reality of the situation. And it was a really uncomfortable, hard truth for me to look at. And those experiences, without going too much more into that, really led to me be where I am today, where I'm not taking things for granted like I used to. Mind you, I still do. And this is a good reminder that even when I'm doing fantastic, I need to realize that nobody owes me this.
Mm.
Nobody owes me this at all. And that's a big deal, and that's never going to change.
I could relate because that whole aspect of feeling, going back to almost feeling robbed. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck did I do? I was in this pity party style rehearsal. I would just rehearse it constantly, and you know, um, it's kind of going back to that reading, the orchestrating life, and the curtains, the lights, the everything. And I was just orchestrating my pity party, and and that's where I love being. And if you didn't like being there, then fuck you, and then you're, if it wasn't all about me, right? And adapting an attitude of gratitude is one of the hardest things I think it's going to be for this week, because that's my goal, adapting the attitude of gratitude. But also for me, like, yeah, gratitude's great, but it's also more than being thankful, right? I say thanks all the time. That doesn't mean I give a shit, right?
Gotta
So
act.
yeah, exactly. If I'm saying thank you, it's not really showing in my actions, and I'm not showing up or where I can, and I'm horrible with that, right? I get in work mode, and I go. I constantly stress on finances. So I think if I work the most, then, and it does help, don't get me wrong, but it's like that whole spiritual aspect is, that's when I realize that I'll be fried. And that's one of my biggest challenges, is being more than just thankful. And that sounds silly, right? Because that's literally the definition, is in part, is it's connected to kindness as well, right? Readiness to show appreciation and to return any kindness, right? So it's the whole adopting the attitude of gratitude is just like more than saying thank you. And I just thought gratitude was just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But it's a hard one, right? So that's going to be my biggest struggle, um, because I'm selfish. When it boils down to it, I'm it's it if my needs aren't met, then I'll manipulate my way to get them. And those are things that I really got to watch it, because I mean, granted, I'm much better than I ever have been in my whole life. It still doesn't give me
Make it
that
okay.
leeway. Yeah, that the I mean, how can you relate to the just more than being thankful? Did that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, practicing. You mentioned work and working more in finances, and I know that's a huge stress of yours. And one of my biggest, character defects is unnecessary spending. And a lot of that,
Great combo.
right? No, uh, because I never had a lot of role models, I don't know how to deal with money in a healthy way. And that's where you really have a strength in this relationship, because you'll call me out if hey, stop getting an Amazon package 3 times a day. Like we don't need 18 toothbrushes
But
just
we
because
do.
it's on sale. But for me, what I think could really help is being mindful of that, being mindful of how much you're working, investing into this relationship and family. And by me not clicking buy now and overspending at the store, yeah, it sounds silly, but it's amazing how much those little things add up. And when I'm in the moment, it's almost like addiction to alcohol or anything else. I don't give a shit about you or your feelings or how much you're working, and I'll just buy, 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 buy. And I think that I could really work on expressing and practicing my gratitude by not clicking the buy button. We're buying the extra bag of chips or bottle of juice for our little one because she really doesn't need it and could care less.
Well, just for the audience, I do have a typed out confession for her to sign after this. So just stay tuned in for the recap next week, see if she signs it or slaps me in the face. But so, bringing up that, and I don't even, obviously, I don't get up, too upset. But when the stress comes on, it's like it,
Amplified.
yeah, but that's also going back to that acceptance piece. I know the reality is I'm gonna be okay. I make enough money, so do you, but it's really facing these life stressors, whether they're warranted or not, whether they're even justified. It's like they're still here, they still come up. This is a bad economy. I don't want to go too deep into that, but there's definitely outside stressors, right? And to just try to navigate those struggles, especially because I'm so selfish, and you deal with your own stuff, right? And we all have our own self-seeking, selfish bullshit we're really just trying to, break out of. It's like for me, I visualize just like a wrestling match just with my inner self, and I'm really just trying to pin down some of these things, and it's really not that serious, right? And I gotta just kind of chill, because my first instinct is fight, resist, and that's just not what some of this stuff. Yeah, you wanna suit up and show up, but when it comes to arming yourself with some of these spiritual principles, there's nothing that in acceptance, there's nothing in gratitude where there's a fight, right? So I have to really consciously remind myself the struggles of gratitude versus my selfishness is is that it's not about that. It's about letting go, right? And that's for me, that whole attitude of gratitude is starting to be able to, like last week, like a big thing for me was just like bringing you coffee when you asked me, even though you asked me all the freaking time, right?
I
And
just said I needed caffeine, not go get me a
but that
$8 cup of coffee, but I loved it.
yeah, but exactly those little things. I'm like, it's like those are those things. My wife, I mean, you do so much for me, and you do so much for our little one, and yeah, I work my ass off, and there's a give and take to all this, but the reality is that's how we show gratitude, right? Is trying to remember to do that kind of stuff, and remind each other, yeah, it doesn't, because the coffee is not it's the effort,
You
it's the
didn't have to
caring.
do it.
Yeah, it's the caring, and those are those things. And I don't want to be like, listen, everybody, I got our coffee last week. Give me a
I
pat
know
on
you
the
need a
back.
pat on the back. Mark it on the calendar, celebrate it every year.
But for a good example for shifting and adapting to that attitude of gratitude is understanding gratitude is action, right? And just understanding how I'm gonna work, and how that, not everybody else got to be in it. Just because I'm grateful doesn't mean you have to be, right? And understanding, and honestly bringing that acceptance piece right back into it. And it's funny how these intermingle all the time, so it's like you're talking about one when you're talking about the other, because they're so intertwined. And you know that that the pretend when you pertain it to your higher power, my higher powder, see there, I'm a true he's already talking about the powder. So when it pertains to a higher power, is that gratitude is, the way I see it, my higher power is always in gratitude. Right? It is gratitude, right? And getting back, and it is acceptance. It is all these things that I'm trying to be more of.
Well, and you attract what you are. And if you're consistently practicing these spiritual principles, then that's going to come right back to you and boosting your happiness, your self esteem, your stress levels. And if you're in a constant negative state of mind, nobody's going to be around you or want to be around you. And the people that do, it's because that's where they are.
Yeah.
You believe in the laws of attraction and so many different things. Practicing an attitude of gratitude, you're welcoming that into your life.
Yeah. I more resonated with the negative aspects of everything, right? Because I'm such a
Negative
knucklehead.
person.
Yeah, I'm a knucklehead, negative person. When it boils down to it, I, you know, and maybe it's something that I've been needing to switch, but there is a lot of power in darkness. I mean, obviously I don't like to get too lost in it, but there's from pain comes a lot of power and clarity, right? You don't have to prescribe pain for you to understand, but for this addict, for this person, it takes a couple of it takes a couple little knocks on the head for me to get it through my brain. And you don't notice your legs working all the time, and you take that for granted. You don't notice your heart beating all the time, take that for granted. But I tell you what, as soon as you get a pain in that leg, or you pull a muscle in your foot, and you know or do anything of the such, or you get a pain in your heart, all of a sudden it's all about that, right? So you never really notice the good, you always notice the bad, because uh, I'm gonna take my feet taking me where I need to go for granted like a mofo, but as soon as it starts hurting, oh, it's all about the pain. And then I start realizing, oh, maybe I need to take care of myself, at least my foot, and take care of these things, because you don't notice until you break your leg how much you really appreciate it. And that's where that pain aspect comes in. And to try to find the messaging before that is the goal, right? It's
Get
because I
it before
don't,
it strikes.
yeah, getting that, I don't have to break my leg to understand that walking is a good thing, right? And shout out to I was talking to my sister, and she's still struggling in what she's struggling with, and she's struggling to get around, and it puts me in a position to where, like, man, I should be grateful, because not everybody has this luxury thing I take for granted every single day. And she's struggling just to get around the house because of injuries of her past. And um we need to wrap it up here in about 9 minutes, so we're close into we're creeping towards the end here. But I just wanted to highlight um, the gratitude and use in my recovery in my life, and how I use it today. Right, the way I do it, and I know it sounds stupid, but a lot of my overworking is connected. I want to provide for my family. I want my wife to be able to, not constantly order stuff, but I want her I want her to be able to know that we're okay if she does, right? And if we need stuff like that, that's how I contribute. That's how I show my gratitude for my family, is making sure my family's needs are met. And it's all about balance, though, right? And I've been making a little bit more effort on my Saturdays when I'm not closing, to hang out with them. And that's going to be something that I'm going to actively use in my recovery, to show my gratitude for the things in my life, is to get more connected and grounded to my family and my daughter over the weekends, right?
She's been loving it.
Yeah, she really digs it. And she's getting to that point, right? I know I'm gonna have to switch up my schedule in a couple years, within a year or two, just so I can be a part of what the things I need to be a part of, because I don't want to be that missing person. My dad was like that, right? He just worked all the time, and we really missed out, and I think that really affected our relationship to this day. And when he was around, it wasn't. He was just always angry, right? And granted, I was doing stupid shit, so it's not like when he came home, he
You
got he
weren't an
got
angel.
the report was horrible. Read the chart. So, you know, and how am I going to go through this week using and adapting that attitude of gratitude, right? I think it goes back to that adapting, right? It's adapting. The whole concept of adapting is you need to evolve into this other thing, if you want to continue to exist, right? And that whole adapting and that whole evolution part is crucial, especially in this recovery. If I want to stay clean and sober,
You gotta grow.
hmm gotta grow. and and that's what I'm going to put in the forefront also. And how I want to be a part of my higher power's grace. I want to be that gratitude, right? I want to be able to look at myself and know that no matter what I'm looking at, is I'm accepting it, and I'm grateful for it, right? Because, I got a text message from my stepmother, my mom, right? I hate saying that. I don't know why I said it, but my mom, and she was listening to this podcast. So if you're listening out, I love you. But just having her reach out and um, I think she listened to the forgiveness, uh, and or the recap to forgiveness, and she heard some of the struggles that I was still going through, and she wanted to re-apologize, even though we've already had that talk. And she just said it in text, and it was a good feeling, right? And I just let her. I said, you know what? No, I'm past a lot of that stuff. I just share it so people could understand that they're not alone, because there could be somebody going through that same struggle, and if I don't share it, then they don't get the gems from it, because that's exactly how I got where I'm at. As my sponsor, all the people in my recovery really kind of helped sharpen this stone that I've been working on in these gems. So
Well, going back to what you said earlier about, acceptance, just because you accept something doesn't mean the person in front of you is going to be in the same place. When it comes to your mom apologizing to you, as you say, a second time, it may have felt like a first for her in different ways because she's probably in a different spot than she was the first time. You can watch the same movie 3 or 4 times and you realize the fourth time key parts that you weren't paying attention to. People are in different places at different times of their lives, so it was awesome that she felt like she needed to do that because you were also in probably a different place to
mm,
where you're more receptive and understanding your current situation and how that relationship played in your past to where you are now.
I could relate to that. I'm glad you said that, because it was less mechanical, right? And by
More
that,
feeling.
yeah, it was more. I was in, I was like, oh wow, that was pretty fucking cool, right? Before, it's just like you go through the motions and just kind of go with it sometimes, but just like to actually feel it was pretty cool, right? I mean, I don't have any hate towards her. There's some stuff that I still need to let go through the abuse that kind of happens naturally, but um yeah, I mean, that whole gratitude piece, right? And then, having the recap of forgiveness showing back up in my life, and then
Hmm.
that acceptance piece, and then
Can't have
now,
one without the other.
oh, so this week we're gonna set forward an attitude of gratitude, right? Or
Less
just
shopping.
less shopping, but just being grateful for the things we have in our life and in our recovery today. And nothing happens in God's world by mistake, right? You know, we're exactly where we need to be. And if you don't believe that, just go lick the wall, see if it's real.
You can't force it on people, babe.
Just in case if you're in the bathroom, then never mind. But it's all real. I mean, it's real life. Knock on, take a deep breath, stay in the moment, knock on wood, do what you got to do to realize that you're here right now in this place, and there's a lot of people like our brother.
Licking walls just like you.
There's a lot of brothers, or at least like my buddy that passed away, and it's right. Just going back to that gratitude is we got another chance. If you're listening to this, you're probably in recovery, right? And we got a chance at this. And um, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No,
All right,
solid.
so call it. All right, so this is FD Recovery. This week is gratitude. So follow us throughout the week. So next week we'll do a recap. If you have any suggestions on what spiritual principle we should do next, then throw it in the comments. I don't have that many comments, so they're super easy to sift through. So it's only when we get like 10,000 or something that's what it'll be hard. But right now we're at the beginning, the genesis. So yeah, just tune in. I love you guys. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder,
Be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor. Get connected to local support groups. And for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.